something like your some sort of ID, and they mentioned having things like financial papers, like I said, would be like bank statements, your birth certificate, your vehicle, like if you're gonna be in your car or something like that, making sure that your vehicle information is all current. Another suggestion was having not just having money, but having rolls of quarters, like maybe a couple of them. You don't want to have a lot because they're kind of heavy to carry, but you may need a quarter. A lot of times if you go into the restroom, you can, I know like in ladies' restroom, they have certain items that you can buy. You slip in a quarter and they you
Sure,
can get those items.
vending machines, but a lot of them take dollars
Right.
now.
Yeah, vending machines. That's true too.
There was one, too, that was interesting. There was one of those articles that the gentleman talked about basically really having your vehicle set up is the primary thing to carry a lot of things, and then your bag, your bug-out bag being something you would take with you, let's say, if the vehicle wasn't operable.
Right.
So I guess there's different ways to look at it. If some of those things like tents and sleeping bags, which are pretty big, those are things maybe you try to keep in a vehicle, and then, the smaller stuff that you have in the bag that you can, carry.
Right, but have you ever done backpacking? Have you done backpacking?
No, I did camping.
Okay, because I went backpacking a few years ago. Well, more than a few years ago. I did that Boundary Water thing up in the Upper Peninsula. Anyway, I think it was like for a week or so, and you're just doing you're camping, basically you're camping and canoeing in the backwoods. And you can put a tent and sleeping bag, all that stuff. I mean, food, everything can actually go in your backpack.
And what did you do for water when you're on that trip?
You know what? We had some sort of we brought water with us. We actually didn't have a water filter. The water up there, I guess it must have been relatively clean. I think back then we used like little droplets to put into the water.
Yeah, they said that in there too. You can buy purification tablets.
Right.
And that's something you could have too.
Right.
I mean, I think that's like if you're drinking out of a spring or something, the water's generally pretty pretty good.
Right.
But there's still bacteria and stuff.
There is still, because I remember also going camping up in the mountains, and the higher up you go, I guess supposedly, I don't know how true that is nowadays, but I know back then, I remember actually drinking water straight out of a stream because we were way high up. It was an early spring. The snow was just beginning to melt. And so I thought the water, I guess I'm still here, so I guess it was okay. But one of the things, too, that this article suggests really is the bug-out bag itself. This particular person recommends that you get the biggest bag that you can carry. And the reason why, first, the initial thought, I guess, when they first wrote the article is just get any bag would do. But really what you want is a good, high-quality bag, because if you do find yourself in an emergency situation, such like what's going on in Haiti, for example, that might be everything that you have. And so you want a bag that you can comfortably carry on your back. We would recommend a backpack for most people. Of course, it doesn't have to be a backpack, but a backpack generally is recommended. Those tend to be the easiest to carry, and you want the biggest one that you can comfortably carry because you can stuff a lot of stuff in a backpack. Now, you have an article. I think I checked out some things on that article, some additional items that I thought might be of interest that wasn't in this particular article that we got off the internet.
Well, you had like a cap, like a baseball cap.
Right.
Is one of the things. Retractable clothesline with pins.
That's a good idea.
Wash your clothes and dry them. I know they said bring like extra underwear and socks, things like that. Latex exam gloves, medicated foot powder, spare eyeglasses, and then a deck of cards for sanity and a favorite book. I guess those are just like things mentally.
Right.
To kind of, if you're like stuck and not doing anything, with nothing to do, so you don't drive yourself nutty.
Right.
And garbage bags you had checked off here.
Right, and what was that website?
This was survivalistsite.com.
Right.
Survivalists with an S site.com.
Right. And like I said, there's just tons and tons of information out there, but those were a couple of websites that we hit. And then we have another article, and this is by Chuck Baldwin. It's dated December the 15th. I think I might have gotten this off of Steve Quayle's website. And what this article talks about, basically, we just got through talking about having a bug-out bag, and then you mentioned having a bug-out vehicle, having your car also prepared in case you need to evacuate in an emergency. But then also this particular article just talks about having your home also prepared for an emergency. And I know I had that happen just recently. We've all gone through some power outages, but I had one of the few times that I never really thought about how important it is to have water. I lived in a city, and the lights were going to be out. The electricity was going to be out for just half a day. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, I was going to work from home, and I would be fine. Well, I didn't realize that the water gets pumped up by, I guess they need the electricity to get the water up to my floor. I was living on a 22nd floor at the time, so that was a problem. Then, of course, even though I had the heat on, all of a sudden, I don't know, once you don't have electricity, my heat was based on my having electricity. I got cold. Right. I remember that. Then
you didn't have a stove, right? Because
I didn't have a stove, so there's nothing I could do. It was really funny.
Microwave.
Right. So I remember sitting there thinking, oh, now I can see why it's a good idea to have some water around. Because I remember sitting there thinking, now what am I going to drink? And I cut on the faucet and nothing came out. So I'm sitting there for a few hours, feeling really pretty miserable and thinking, you know what? The next time they cut the electricity off for half a day, I'm going to either be a little bit better prepared or I'm just not going to be there. And the other thing was the elevators didn't work. So,
right.
I would have had to kind of walk down 22 flights of stairs.
Right. Walking down is not so bad. Walking up would be a little harder.
Right.
Good exercise, though.
Yeah, it is good. Have you found yourself to be in an emergency situation at all?
Well, I remember when I was a kid, one time there was an ice storm, and we went to my grandpa's house and stayed a few days.
Right.
Because, again, we lost power. We didn't have any heat, things like that. So I think that's about the only time there was anything longer than, I remember one time, too, another time where we had a power outage where I used to live, and again, I had to go to my parents' house for a day or two, because we were out of power for like over 24 hours, and it didn't look like it was coming back on.
Right.
So those were the only two times, But I had places to go that weren't that far away, within an hour or less drive.
Right.
And it wasn't, those were just more short-term things. It wasn't like a major disaster, Now, like, some people live in areas that might be prone to floods or earthquakes or hurricanes, But the other thing is just nowadays, unfortunately, with like, the possibility of a terrorist attack, especially if you live in a large metro area.
Right.
If something like that happened, it could certainly cause some craziness to be happening.
Right. So probably would be good to have your emergency evacuation plan planned ahead of time, as well as having a secondary location, a place that you can go to. Like you mentioned, you have family members. Might be good to have that in place ahead of time, so that way something happens, you're not just suddenly showing up on someone's doorstep.
Or friends.
Right. Yeah.
So the other thing would be, like, when I was looking through this list, I realized that there's a lot of things that you maybe should have or whatever. And like most people, if you don't have them, I think the only thing, if you want, one thing you could do is perhaps, if you wanted to just start to collect things.
Right.
Again, you never know when you're going to need it, and maybe you don't have the resources to just go out and buy all this stuff at once. But I guess the idea is you could, just start, slowly building up your pack, so to speak.
And then they actually have emergency preparation kits. I mean, you can buy all of this stuff, if money's not an object. I actually thought I saw a bug out bag. I think it was one I saw on Amazon it seemed like it had everything in it, but it's about $500, including the bag. So, but it had everything that you needed. Another thing, too, is the Red Cross. The Red Cross has a really excellent website that talks about emergency preparation, and they even have classes. So I thought that might also be something you might want to consider doing. Something I might actually consider doing is just taking a class on basic first aid. So that way, if something happens, I can, I know how to, if it's something minor, but if it's something a little bit major, just little things like knowing how to do CPR. Someone, falls and breaks their arm or something, how do you do a makeshift cast?
Dr. Crystal.
Well, those are things, when I hit their website, I mean, they gave me a whole lot of ideas, and I thought that was one thing that I thought that was really good. They even had first aid classes that you can take online. So if you're not able to take time out and do a class in person, you can actually do an online course. And then they actually had classes available for children. They had children first aid class for children ages 8 to 10. So just thought I'd mention that too.
Yeah, all interesting stuff.
Right.
I guess what's the moral of the story is if you can be prepared, then you won't be caught off guard if you ever need it.
Right.
So.
And so, do you have a bug out bag, Gary?
I do not, and this is something that you brought to my attention. So.
Right.
Something to start to work on.
Right. So hopefully next time that we do our show, hopefully next week, you'll have a bag, at least a bag, or at least an item to put in a bag when you get your bag. Okay, well, that's it for this week.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and keep on coming to our site. We appreciate the listeners.
Right. That's all. Bye,
right.
everyone.
Bye-bye.